The Central Bank of Nigeria on Friday announced the introduction of the Nigerian overnight financing rate as a new benchmark for the country's money market, aimed at improving transparency and strengthening monetary policy transmission. Now, the disclosure was contained in a press statement issued by the CBN's Acting Director of Corporate Communications, Hakama Sidi Ali. According to the statement, the initiative was developed in collaboration with the Financial Markets Dealers Association to deepen the financial system. Now, Brazil's oil giant Petrobras has come under intense backlash after posting about $22 billion in profit for 2025, as critics accuse the company of double standards, in that it promoted energy transition to the public but cut the budget for renewable energy in reality. The projection of a pro-clean fuel image angered protesters who gathered in front of Petrobras headquarters in Rio de Janeiro on Thursday, while the company was scheduled to hold its annual general meeting. Now, fresh records from Nigeria's Debt Management Office have shown that the federal government has raised 100 billion naira through the Unclaimed Funds Trust Fund, drawing on dormant bank balances and unclaimed dividends as part of its domestic borrowing program. The DMO, in its latest domestic debt stock report, listed an instrument valued at 100 billion naira as at December 31st, 2025. Now, this amount represents about 0.12% of the federal government's total domestic debt stock of 80.49 trillion naira. Our RISE business analyst Chika Mbonu joins me now to discuss these developments even further. Good morning, Mr. Chika. Great to have you here today.
Abby, how are you? Welcome
Very
to a new
well,
week.
thank you. Yes, welcome to a new week. Let's begin with the federal government borrowing 100 billion naira from dormant accounts and unclaimed dividends. What should we know about this?
Abby, you know, when we were talking about, a group of my friends talking about this over the weekend, one of my friends just said, that this reminds him of those days when you know the mornings that our younger days when our uncles and aunties would give us some money, and then one day our mom says, "Let me
reach into your
let me take money and hold it for you," and then we never see the money again. You know that's this action of the federal government reminds him of these kind of mommy things. You know, but I just want to assure the public that it's not exactly the issue of our mom borrowing our monies and not paying us back, but it's akin to you left money inside your old jeans pocket. I mean, you don't know about it, forgot about it, and the government comes and takes it, uses it, but write down your name and says that, you know, anytime you come, I will give you this money back to you. But, you know, on the street, you know, people will be wondering, you know, because the major problem, one of the major problems is that government don't even they borrow forgotten money now. So it'd be like, say, things tie small for government, you know. So that's a perception issue immediately, that government is going everywhere looking for money to borrow to fund this operation. Even though this, you know, 100 billion naira, you know, just very paltry, you know, when you put it over the about 80 trillion plus of our public debt. But it's legal. It's legal. In the 2020 Finance Act, the Unclaimed Funds Trust Fund was set up, and it addresses the issue of dividends not collected by a lot of shareholders. Regularly, a lot of companies, you know, publish unclaimed dividends, and these monies run into sizable amounts, billions of naira. People are not claiming their dividends, either because of name changes, address changes, and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of education by the public companies to help people come and claim dividends. Or, which is this one's a little tricky. Bank accounts have not been inactive for 6 years, maybe above, or 10 years. You know, so these amounts have been aggregated into this unclaimed fund trust account, and then based on the 2020 Act, and then made available for the government. The whole government has gone there to, you know, I'm told the balance now is about more than 200 to 50 billion. The government has gone there to make do with 100 billion to supplement their funding. So the issue, therefore, you know, for our viewers, is not a dash; it is a loan. And the government owes the owners, and the owners can claim their money back when they want, you know. But it's private money. That's the controversy about it. and government using private money to fund its operations. So there are issues on that, and they had to do property rights and trust concerns. And the other aspect of it is that some of our brothers abroad actually open accounts in Nigeria here and leave them. They don't run them for whatever reasons, but it's their money. They don't abandon the account. But so what do they do now? So do people feel, are my savings account safe? Are my investments safe? So if I leave my account, whatever, the next government will make do with it. So even investors also will say, "Oh, my dividends, are they safe?" So those sentiments, you may just say, but they exist. They exist. But it's not strange. It's not strange. The other countries in the world do this also. But let's make sure that there's accountability.
Yeah.
That's when people come for their money, they don't make it difficult for them. Like in Nigeria, claiming flight ticket refund is like passing through the air of a needle.
Yeah.
So we don't have things like that. So as I told you, the issue is the perception.
Right, and perception is also very key because it's a double-pronged one here because you've mentioned the legal basis for it under the Finance Act for 2020, but of course it also raises those legitimate concerns about the safety of individuals' private funds, and also
how broke is the government?
Absolutely, and well, I mean that's neither here nor there sometimes, but mostly fiscal discipline, like you also mentioned, is going to be very important here as well, and accountability. Let's move on to Petrobras cashing in $22 billion on oil. What should we know about this, Mr. Chika?
I mean, there are two aspects to this story. That's why I want to look at it. The first aspect has to do with this running argument between fossil fuels and the renewable energy.
Yeah.
A lot of people have, actually sang the requiem, the death knell on fossil fuels. The crude oil has to know that it's dead. They should go and ask the Strait of Hormuz now, and you will know that everything oil is the major issue in the world now. So that's the major thing. So a lot of oil companies, the shareholders have been pushing them to, move towards renewable energy transition. Yeah. Now, but you see, what's happening now is this, that Petrobras, by the way, Petrobras is the second aspect of the story. Petrobras is the national oil company of Brazil. Yeah. Now, Petrobras has come out there. In the face of it, they're saying we are for renewable energy. We are for renewable energy, but they're making away $20 billion in profit from focusing on their fossil fuels. So the issue for them, and the issue that they reduced the budget for renewable energy to achieve this profit by 20%. And so that's why the shareholders, I'm sure they're going to protest on Thursday during the AGM. So that's the major issue for them. So the issue of renewable energy versus the fossil fuel argument. Now, for the lessons for us there is that money still to be made in the fossil fuel. Yeah. That's where the money is now, at least in the short term. And so that if you listen to the hymn book of the Western world that says, throw away the renewable energy, you can see what's happening. All of them are still focusing on fossil fuel, making their money from there. And then, and then reducing their budgets on renewable energy. So that's very important. Nigeria should also focus, make our investments on what God has given to us, which is our fossil fuels, while we are moving towards the transition towards renewable energy. I mean, the other aspect of this is Petrobras. Petrobras, as I told you, is a national oil company of Brazil. When you mention this name, it's in the same league with Aramco of Saudi Arabia, Rosneft of Russia, even Gazprom of Russia also. I mean, you can mention all the names. The issue, therefore, is how does our own darling NNPC compare with this Petrobras? So see Petrobras, 22 billion naira in dollars in profit. Consistent global investor confidence. It's publicly listed company, transparent, commercially driven. Flip something to our own NNPC, and see, Of course, recently commercialized NNPC, you still wonder in Nigeria when, after seeing how LNG has prospered, why we cannot transfer the same model to NNPC. We're talking about NNPC being listed, but that's more speaking than action. NNPC struggle with the subsidy legacy, cash flow pressures on operational inefficiencies. If you take a poll around the country, anytime NNPC is mentioned, I don't think that is the positives that the Nigerians want to talk about NNPC. So what I say, Petrobras is operating like a global major. NNPC is a transition from a government bureaucracy, to business discipline, and that's major. So that's the major thing for us in this story. The renewable energy challenge versus the fossil fuel transition, and the issue that can our NNPC be like Petrobras?
And I believe that there's a recurring theme there is also around transparency, because if you look at the Brazilian taxpayers saying, hey, there's almost a smoke screen of sorts going on there. You've painted this picture on the outside, but in reality, is that what's really happening?
That's the major issue, the accountability.
Absolutely.
And because if it's not, you're not accountable, nobody would have known how they made their money.
Yeah.
Because of the accountability, the transparency they are running, that's why this issue has arisen. And we're praying and hope, as I told you, that for me, the thing about this story for me is that let our NNPC, see what's happening to the other national oil companies, and let the politicians involved also get to know that the best thing for us also is to let the NNPC run like NLNG has been running. At the time, remember, NLNG dividends were what helped to rescue this country from these dire finances, and hope that NNPC will transparently transit to that publicly limited liability company, that there will be worldwide acclaim like Petrobras has now.
Absolutely, and also something to learn from the Brazilians themselves, calling into accountability for the body at heart. Let's talk now. CBN introducing overnight rates to deepen money markets.
Nigeria overnight financing rates.
Overnight financing
Nigeria finance overnight rates. May sound very technical, but really a powerful reform the Nigerian financial system. You might look at the name, maybe you call it NOFRA. Maybe you call it NOFRA. It's official rate at which banks lend money to each other overnight in our country, and it will reflect the true daily price of money in Nigeria. Just look at it this way, you go to mile 12 to go and buy tomatoes, and let's say you go with your friend, and at the end of the day, two of you, when arrive there, she takes one direction, you take another, and say you will meet in about 2 hours' time. And then when she comes out, people start comparing notes. How much did you buy a basket of tomatoes? He says 10,000. How much did you buy yours? He says 15,000. The same basket of tomatoes.
In the same market.
In the same market. So that's what is existing now. So this new system, the NOFRA now, will lead to the fact that there's more transparency in the pricing of money in the Nigerian market. And similar other countries have also had it. Whether it's US, whether it's US name is the Great Britain own name is very very interesting. Their own name is short form is Sonia. US is SOFRA, and then the EU has their own also. Japan has their own as TONA. So every financial market, the serious financial market, has a trusted benchmark rate. So this is why this rate is very, very important. It will lead to transparency. It leads to better transmission of the CBN monetary policies directly to the market, based on actual transactions that take place. Not the fact that each banks are dealing with each other independently, and you don't know what the cluster is. So you have a cluster rate, and then around which banks can do their transactions now, and that enables the market to be more transparent. And that's one thing the rate achieves. Right. So it brings clarity, transparency, and discipline.
Right. A reference point for pricing financial
results. Harmony is priced.
Oh, that's very welcome. Cannot be overemphasized how important transparency is. Mr. Chika Mbonu, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Thank you.
Hopefully, many thanks.